Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation, TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you today. We got a good Monday show for you guys today. Hopefully you all had an excellent weekend. Mine was very, very busy. And yes, I hurt myself with the weekend, so you can obviously see that. Let's not get into it, but in reality, I'm a very clumsy person. So that's, yeah. We're going to move on. But it seems to be very, very noticeable, which sucks. But anyway, like I said, good weekend for the most part. Got a lot of things done, and now we're back. We got a lot of stories, fun stuff that we're going to talk about today, including Don Blankenship. So this is West Virginia primary that's going to be happening tomorrow. Very interesting stuff. And we're going to talk about this racist ad, his reaction to it, and then the Republican Party is basically in panic mode over this guy, the possibility that he could win. This is awesome. So we've got that story. That's going to be a lot of fun. Then we're going to go into something more serious. We're going to talk about the Trump campaign, or the Trump camp, basically hiring spies to dig up dirt on Obama officials, and for what reason? Interesting. Because there is an overall goal here. In doing so, then we have Elizabeth Warren versus Mick Mulvaney. That's fun. So, then we're gonna talk about, and you'll love this segment. Fox News host decides she's going to go after Jeff Sessions. That is awesome. That is amazing, and you're going to love that story. So that's what we've got on the show today. A lot of fun stuff. Also, if you want, you can always put something in the chat, like ask me a question or whatever, and I'll try to get to it. Maybe at the end of the show, if we've got a little bit of time. You can send in like a story or something, and I'll just do a quick overview if I know anything about it. Kind of like a get your news on with Ron kind of thing. If we've got extra time, and I have a feeling we might have a couple of extra minutes, depending on how long these stories take. So that said, make sure if you haven't already, please share the stream. Super important. That helps us a great deal. So please like and share as well. And then also, if you want to use the super chat, that obviously always helps us. And we'll read your messages as well. So, okay. Let's see. I guess we can get going with the show. So we'll start with the first story. All right. Boom. Here we go. So there's a little bit of a primary going on in West Virginia. Of course, we've talked about the Democratic side, Joe Manchin, Paula Jean Swearengin, which is going to be an amazing election, of course. Because you actually have a true progressive going against a corporate right-wing Democrat. Now, the other race happening on the Republican side is also very interesting. Because here you have a coal baron and a former inmate running as a Republican in West Virginia. This guy is Don Blankenship. And I haven't talked about him before. But as I said before, he is engaged in a primary in which the Republican establishment desperately does not want him to win. Now, why is that? Well, maybe this ad might have a little bit of something to do with that.
Hi, I'm Don Blankenship, candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message. Swamp Captain Mitch McConnell has created millions of jobs for China people. While doing so, Mitch has gotten rich. In fact, his China family has given him tens of millions of dollars. Mitch's swamp people are now running false negative ads against me. They are also childishly calling me despicable and mentally ill. The war to drain the swamp and create jobs for West Virginia people has begun. I will beat Joe Manchin and ditch Cocaine Mitch for the sake of the kids.
Wow. Now, there's a lot of fun in that. First of all, Cocaine Mitch, really? But I think the most obvious and glaring thing that happened in that ad was the new phrase China people. Oh, well, that's interesting. So Mitch McConnell's China people and China family. Wow. That actually is probably one of the most nakedly racist ads I've seen. I mean, because like, well, I mean, to be fair, at least he kind of updated China person to, or I'm sorry, Chinaman to China person. To be fair. But, man, look. Mitch McConnell isn't even running in this race. He's in Kentucky. Why does he even bring up Mitch McConnell? That's weird. And by the way, like, don't make me defend Mitch McConnell. Like, I don't want to defend Mitch McConnell, but in this case, I'm going to have to. I mean, Cocaine Mitch? What the hell? What the hell? Okay, so let's get into the details about that, right? Now, it turns out Blankenship put out another previous ad that claimed that politicians blew up a coal mine and put him in prison. Now, I'm pretty sure that he did that by himself. I'm pretty sure that was your fault. In fact, a state investigation into Massey Energy, that's a company that Blankenship owned, found that negligence was the main reason for the explosion that killed 29 workers at the Upper Big Branch mine in West Virginia. So, oh, look at that. He presided over a mine that exploded because he was too cheap to put in adequate safety measures. Congratulations. He served a year in prison for this. Now, they pointed, the state investigators did, to the faulty ventilation system, the inadequate application of rock dust, and the equipment failures as cause of the blast. All that stuff, Blankenship should have actually known about if he were doing his job and actually fixed if he were doing his job. But he wasn't doing his job. He didn't care about the workers. And as a result, 29 people died. Okay. Now, that claim ad said, as I said before, the politicians, they decided to put Blankenship in prison. Well, again, I think there was a pretty good reason for that. But at the end of the ad, he again brought up Cocaine Mitch. Cocaine Mitch. That's very, very strange. Now, wait a minute. Does he mean that Mitch McConnell does cocaine? Well, anybody who's ever seen Mitch McConnell talk knows that that cannot be true. Again, maybe he could use some. I'm just saying. So, very unlikely. But we know, and this comes back to the China family, right? We know that Mitch McConnell is married to Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao. Now, Elaine Chao happens to own, or her family happens to own, a shipping company in New York called the Foremost Group, right? So it was founded by her father-in-law, McConnell's father-in-law, James Chao, and it was called the Foremost Maritime Corporation. Now, back in 2014, The Nation put out a piece, and they reported that authorities in Colombia had found about 90 pounds of cocaine inside one of these ships called the Ping Mei. Now, this was a bulk carrier owned by the Foremost Group. So, Blankenship, he sees that, and he's like, oh, they found cocaine in one of their ships. One of the China family ships. The Cocaine Mitch, right? Now, the ship was docked at the Colombian port city of Santa Marta, and destined for the Netherlands with a shipment of coal. Now, they found, like I said, cocaine in the hold. Well, what happened? The ship was docked at the Colombian, no charges were filed, nobody was arrested, and there's no evidence that Mitch McConnell and his family were involved. So, I mean, look, if there's no arrests, no case, then you can't really say he's Cocaine Mitch. Nonetheless, China family, Cocaine Mitch, right? Now, look, Elaine Chao, by the way, is an American citizen now, and her company is an American company. So, look, that's about as much as I'm going to defend Mitch McConnell, because I completely disagree with all of his positions. Those are just facts, right? So, now, when called on in this ad, Blankenship decides to dig himself into a further hole. Now, he said, quote, "We're confused on our staff as to how it can be racist when there's no mention of race. There's no race. Races are Negro, white Caucasian, Hispanic, Asian. There's no mention of a race. I've never used a race word." Oh, well, just because you don't use a quote-unquote race word doesn't mean that you're not being racist. In fact, look, just mentioning the China family is a little bit of a racist dog whistle when you think about it. I mean, why bring up the family in the first place? Now, I understand the whole idea of attacking Mitch McConnell. He's fair game. And even if you want to criticize Elaine Chao, who was a public official, well, you could do that too, right? And you could also criticize the company, and you can also say, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's something a little bit shady about the cocaine that was found. Maybe there is some sort of smuggling operation going on. I don't know, right? Okay, if you want to point that stuff out, fine. But then you're going to go after ethnicity, which is a little weird. But I know what they're trying to do, right? So he's trying to say, well, I mean, China bad, right? Just like Donald Trump says, China bad. And you can point out to some of the trade deals and say, okay, look, yes, there are issues with our trade policies with China. That's fair. He's not doing that. He's not making any of those distinctions. He's not actually going after policy. What he's saying is that China family bad. Mitch McConnell bad. Therefore, Republican establishment bad. I'm not a fan of the Republican establishment either. But at the same time, you can point out actual policy positions where the Republican establishment is not on the side of workers. And you can point to their whole ideas of free trade. But this guy's not doing any of that. But what he's just doing is racist attacks. He's race baiting. And that's the reality of his attacks. And again, if you want to point out how China and our trade policies for China are leading to the loss of American jobs because our corporations would rather go and exploit cheap Chinese labor, well, that is a perfectly legitimate observation and a perfectly legitimate conversation and criticism. But nonetheless, as I said before, they're not doing that. They're not doing that at all. So Blankenship is basically being an old school racist, straight up. I mean, look, back in the 50s and 60s, for example, they did call Asian people Chinamen. Again, once people realized that that was offensive, most people stopped saying that. Don Blankenship knows that that's offensive and still continues to double down. It's like, no, what are you talking about? Chinamen. And then, of course, as he refers to African Americans as the Negros. Oh, my God. See, no. The point is that this guy is so bad and so openly racist that he is even scaring the Republican Party, who operates on racist dog whistles. But now in the era of Trump, we're beyond the dog whistles. Now we're employing human whistles so that everybody can hear it. And when you have the Republicans that are against somebody, well, that's when you know it's real bad. It's getting real bad for them. Okay. Okay. Let's continue with this Blankenship. So there's a primary going on in West Virginia on the Republican side, and one of the candidates is literally a criminal. This is Don Blankenship. Now, when he was an executive at a coal mine in West Virginia, there was an explosion under his watch that killed 29 people. That was due to him being cheap and negligent of his workers. And of course, that cost people's lives. Now, he ended up spending a year in prison for that negligence. And now that he's out, well, he decides, you know what, I'm gonna run as a Republican, and I'm gonna run as somebody who's Trumpier than Trump, right? Now, he is ahead of his Republican opposition, both Evan Jenkins and State Attorney General Patrick Morrisey. Now, the primary is May 8th, so it's tomorrow. So this is a huge primary, obviously. Now, Republicans, the Republican establishment especially, is not happy about this man running as part of their party, which is funny because he says a lot of very racist things, and you would think that that fits in perfectly with the modern Republican Party. Well, it turns out the Republican Party still likes to employ dog whistles, and this guy's like, no, I don't need a dog whistle. We're going to go with a human whistle, okay? Now, it's gotten so bad that even Donald Trump is now speaking out, at the behest, of course, of Mitch McConnell, against Don Blankenship. Now, this morning, President Trump tweeted, quote, "To the great people of West Virginia, we have together a really great chance to keep making a big difference." Oh, that's fun. Problem is, Don Blankenship, currently running for Senate, can't win the general election in your state. No way. Remember Alabama. Vote Representative Jenkins or A.G. Morrisey. So, look, he's not even backing one specific candidate. He's just saying, don't vote for Blankenship. No matter whatever you do not vote for Don Blankenship. Remember Alabama. That's like the rallying cry going forward now for Republicans. Because, look, man, you know, Alabama is a very interesting case. Talked about it at length. And they basically put up a pedophile. And, of course, the Democrat, Doug Jones, barely beat a pedophile. But that's another story. We need to go left. But anyway, they put this guy up, Roy Moore, and he lost. Barely. But he lost. So now they're like, oh, my God, we could lose again. Whatever you do, don't vote for Don Blankenship because, as I mentioned before, he's a criminal and a racist. So, now what's going to happen? Well, as I mentioned before, he's actually ahead in the polls, and he is surging on the night before the primary among Republican voters. So this is a disaster for them, or it's a potential disaster. Now, look, this entire thing says a couple of things. The fact that Donald Trump is obviously tweeting against it, Mitch McConnell, of course. Look, that's not a surprise because he's been attacking Mitch McConnell as Cocaine Mitch for quite some time, which is sad/hilarious in a way. But anyway, he's been making all these attacks against the Republican establishment. That is fairly normal. And he says, oh, no, I'm Trumpier than Trump. I don't think you can do that. But anyway, this shows that Republican officials are, thanks to what happened in Alabama, are like, don't run any Trump-inspired candidates. Like, you can say you're Trump-inspired, but for the love of God, do not run like Trump anymore. It is not going to work. Don't be openly racist. For God's sake, stop. And again, look, these two politicians, Roy Moore and Don Blankenship, they're a lot alike. Except that one, of course, touches or allegedly touched little girls. But anyway, look, Republican voters are also alike in Alabama and in West Virginia because they don't care. They are completely unfazed. Like, we don't care that he's a criminal. We don't care that he's a racist. In fact, we love that. Or, of course, like a lot of Republican voters, all that bad stuff against Blankenship, that's just fake news. We don't actually believe that he caused the death of 29 people. But you could go out and you could look. And you can go out and you can research and you can check. These are facts. His negligence, He spent time in prison. This is not fake news. This is real. But I'm sure there are Republican voters out there that say, nope, fake. It's just the establishment trying to destroy Don Blankenship. You know what? That's gonna bring me out to vote for him even more. So now, what happens if Don Blankenship wins? Well, that's a very interesting question. For one, it would show you that Donald Trump is not nearly as effective at influencing the base as he used to be. If enough primary voters decide, you know what, no, I'm not going to vote with Trump. I'm not going to vote for these guys, Morrissey or whatever, or Jenkins. No, I'm going to vote for the guy that represents me the most, the criminal. Well, that pretty much tells you something about the Republican base, that there is no bottom to that barrel, and they will continue to back the insane candidates. Now, there is another, I think, more positive spin that you can take from that. Maybe spin's the wrong word, but I guess a positive lesson that you can take from it is that maybe this shows that the country, and especially Republicans, but I think this can extend to other voters as well, are still in an anti-establishment mood. I mean, on the right, the fervor for anti-establishment candidates, which of course Blankenship definitely paints himself as, are still incredibly popular, and people are not happy with the establishment. So I guess that is one possible good thing that you can take from this story. But for the Republican Party, his late stage surge and the possibility that he can win this primary and the possibility that Trump is losing his influence, not good signs. Okay. Fascinating. Okay. Yeah, there is a good point here in the chat, of course. Actus Magus says, Arpaio was criminally convicted too. Didn't stop them from cheering his unorthodox pardon. Exactly. That shows you exactly who these people are, who these voters are. So they definitely support criminals. They support racists, and look, people get a lot of flack for saying the word deplorable, but there are people in the Republican Party that are absolutely 100% deplorable. So it is what it is, man. You want to get offended and be a snowflake? All right, well, go ahead. I don't really give a shit. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I am going to take a quick break. We'll be back. We got more stories, including Israel, Elizabeth Warren, of course, and the Jeff Sessions story you are not going to want to miss. So, all right. We'll be back in a minute, so stay right here. Around the Nation. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation, right here at TBT Nation. If you haven't already, please give us a share and a like on YouTube. That's appreciated. Of course, super chats as well. If you're interested in helping out the show, you can send one of those, or you can sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. All of that goes to help independent progressive media. Now, so let's go into something serious and non-election related. We're going to talk about the Iran deal and how Donald Trump is attempting to interfere with that, eliminate it. Okay. Let's see. Do I not have the... Yeah, no, I do not have a sidebar for that. What the fuck? Hold. Here we go. Gotta do things myself. Anyway, okay. So Donald Trump is not a fan of the Iran deal. In fact, he has said multiple times that he would love to scrap the Iran deal. Get rid of it and possibly renegotiate it. Oh, well, that's wonderful. Now, there are new details out in a report that shows how exactly the Trump camp is attempting to undermine the deal. Because, look, the deal is actually fairly popular, especially among the world leaders. A lot of the countries say, don't scrap the Iran deal. Do not walk away from the deal because it's working. It's working. It's actually doing what it's supposed to do. Now, this new report out in the UK alleges that Donald Trump's camp had attempted to, or had actually hired, Israeli spies in an effort to delegitimize the deal as a method for them to be able to pull out. Now, first reported by the UK's Observer, the report alleges that these Israeli spies were hired to dig up dirt on two officials in the Obama administration who helped negotiate the deal. Now, the idea, said an unnamed source familiar with the campaign, was that people acting for Trump would discredit those who were pivotal in selling the deal, making it easier for the United States and President Trump to justify pulling out of that deal. As I said before, this is one of Donald Trump's campaign promises. He says, this Iran deal, terrible, dangerous. They're gonna have nuclear weapons. No, the whole point of the deal is to make sure that they don't have nuclear weapons. But look, Trump couldn't point out to one terrible thing about the deal without making shit up. And that's what he does. For example, one of the most often cited things is, we gave Iran millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. But you know what? That's actually not true. Yes, Iran did receive money, and we did give them money. You know whose money it was? It was their money. It was money that we owed them. Back before the Iranian Revolution, Iran wanted to buy U.S. weapons, right, and equipment. So they gave us the money, and then the Iranian Revolution happened, and we're like, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to hold on to this money. It's pretty much our money now. So they didn't get the arms and stuff, and we held on to their money. So as a term of as part of the terms of the deal, we gave Iran that money back, and we helped unfreeze some of their assets, as well as pull back on some of our sanctions that were crippling the Iranian people. So, but of course, as I said before, that's a lie that the right loves to perpetuate. And loves to say, hey, look, that's why we don't support the Iranian deal. We just gave them all that money. Not true. Not true. Now, without facts to back them up, because we can easily debunk their narrative, well, here comes a little bit of help from Israel. especially Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, of course, he's been talking about Iran for quite some time. More bombshell reports. Oh, they're getting close to a nuke. They're getting close to a nuke. We better bomb Iran. We better scrap the deal so that we can start bombing Iran. But look, his reports, which are hilarious because a little graphics that he uses, like, he uses an actual bomb shape to be like, look, they're real close. They're almost up to the wick. We better bomb Iran. Well, all that has just been nothing more than essentially hyperbole, right? But that hyperbole gets used or is trying to get used as a pretext for war. And so I'm not at all interested, right? In fact, if we suspect that Iran is hiding nuclear weapons, which is definitely a possibility. And look, I'm not naive, okay? Yes, they could have a secret nuclear program. They could have hidden their stockpile. But you know what? We have tools inside the deal that allow us as an international community to go in if we have any suspicion and look for these nuclear capabilities. We can use the tools of the deal to make sure that they're honoring the deal. And if the United States unilaterally walks out, then we lose the ability to do that because the rest of the world is not going to follow us. So we're no longer, sorry to say, but we are no longer leaders in the world. And maybe that is for the best. But of course, working with the other countries and ensuring that the deal actually works is not where the right-wing government of Israel or our right-wing government wants to go. And John Bolton, for example, he wants to go to war with Iran. He's always wanted to go to war with Iran. And we have so many neocons in our government and so many neocons in the Israeli government that want to start a war with the Iranian regime. That's not a good idea. That would be disastrous. Now, there's a little bit more on this report, okay? The individuals targeted in the so-called Dirty Ops campaign were Ben Rhodes, who served as Deputy National Security Advisor for Strategic Communications for President Obama, and Colin Kahl, Deputy Assistant to Obama and National Security Advisor to former Vice President Joe Biden. So, look, these are Obama guys, okay? Now, one thing that we know about Donald Trump is that anything President Obama has done, Trump wants to undo and then do it over, right? Oh, can you believe that? Obama making this deal with Iran, rip it up, and then maybe I'll make my own deal. I mean, that's what he was saying. Oh, maybe I'll renegotiate the deal. Well, first of all, if you rip up the deal, look, that's going to be disastrous for gas prices, which of course impact regular Americans. So that's one of the immediate impacts. The other immediate impact is we could be facing a war with Iran, a unilateral war with Iran. That's not good. That's not the way that we want to go. And of course, that would force them to try to renuclearize as fast as possible so they could defend themselves against American aggression. Now, they continue. The contact with the Israeli private intelligence agency allegedly took place last May, just after Trump's visit to Israel, which would make sense. The second stop of his first trip abroad as president. The line of attack was to get information on personal relationship, any involvement with Iran-friendly lobbyists, and if they had benefited personally or politically from this peace deal. Well, look, if we're talking about anybody benefiting from the peace deal, that would mean everybody. We all benefit from a peace deal with Iran. You know why? Because we don't want to go to war with Iran, and we don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. So, yes, we all benefit. So if that's a pretext, then I guess we're all guilty of that, right? Now, the agency was also tasked with contacting prominent Iranian Americans, as well as pro-deal journalists from the New York Times, MSNBC, The Atlantic, Vox, and Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, among others, who had frequent contact with Rhodes and Kahl in an attempt to establish whether they had violated any protocols by sharing sensitive intelligence. So they had these Israeli spies basically spying, well, they're spies after all, on journalists. Well, that has some serious ethical considerations, right? So, obviously, I value a free press. Hiring foreign spies to spy in on our officials and whether or not they've had contact with various news outlets sounds like a serious violation of the First Amendment. So, man, this is a damning report. But what's worse is that they may have actually even targeted these people's families. In a Twitter thread, Call suggested it was possible that the Dirty Ops campaign had also targeted his wife and referred to suspicious emails she had received in late May and early June of 2017. So, look, again, dirty swamp-level politics, all in an effort, of course, to try to pull out of a deal for political consideration. And that's what this is all about. This was one of Donald Trump's campaign promises. This isn't based on facts. This isn't based on, any information that we have that's credible about Iran possessing nuclear weapons and therefore being in violation of the deal. This is nothing more than, of course, just a political ploy in order to say that, look at me, I've done something. I ripped up the Iran deal just like I said I was going to do. Pay people, come out and vote for me when I run for president in 2020. That's all this is. And so they're literally putting the Middle East on the brink of war for political points. Man, that's gross. And look, it just shows you how desperate the neocons in both the United States and Israel are willing to go in order to launch a new disastrous war with Iran. And you know who's going to be alongside right with them? The defense industry and, unfortunately, mainstream media. Oh boy. Okay. Let's move on. Now, Elizabeth Warren was pretty instrumental in the creation of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Now that Mulvaney has taken over as the acting head of the agency, which, again, I need to remind you that he's not necessarily supposed to be the acting head of the CFPB, but again, Donald Trump and the Trump administration doesn't exactly follow the rule of law. And he has, since he's taken over, he's transformed it into a way to help banks and bankers instead of actual human beings and consumers. Now, that's essentially the perversion of the entire point of the CFPB. So now Elizabeth Warren is going to get the chance to tell Mulvaney exactly how she feels about his stewardship of the agency that she worked so hard to help create. Take a look.
But you never supported the consumer watchdog, Mr. Mulvaney. You got to Congress after the CFPB was created. But in 2012, you voted in favor of a Republican budget that called for eliminating the agency entirely. Is that right?
I don't have a specific recollection, but that sounds familiar to me.
Sounds
yes,
familiar. Okay. But that was only the beginning. You also voted for Republican budgets that eliminated the CFPB in 2013, 2014, and 2015. Does that sound right?
Again, yes, ma'am. There were occasional Republican budgets I didn't vote for, and I don't know what was in them, but generally speaking, I see your point. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I mean, you know, I voted for Republican budgets because they all involve tax cuts and deregulation, but I don't remember any specific ones to destroy the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, right? Okay, well, let me remind him. 4 times he voted on budgets that killed the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. 4 times. Now, during one of those votes, he actually called the agency a, quote, sick, sad joke. Because, you know, actually going after the criminals that rip off Americans is somehow sick and sad. He remembers. He knows. He's been an opponent of the agency for as long as the agency has existed. Why? Because he works for those same banks that would be regulated. But now, of course, the cruel, sick, sad joke is now that he is the head of this very agency and is perverting it, of course, for his own ends. Now, let me look at some of the cases where the money has been returned to consumers that have been cheated. Now, one example is car loans, right? Now, so she told the story of a car loan taken by a soldier from Massachusetts. Now, that car loan was predatory. It ended up taking more than 60% of his paycheck, his military paycheck, while he was serving in Iraq. So that seemed obviously predatory. And so this soldier's father's like, okay, look, there's a big problem with this. I'm going to go to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Well, they found that this was a predatory loan, and they actually got it to where he could recoup that money. That's what the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau does. In fact, since its creation, it's recouped about $12 billion to consumers who were ripped off by various banks and institutions. So this is something, this is an agency that goes in when they find wrongdoing. They punish these corporations. They take the money back. And then you know what? They give it to the people that have been defrauded. That's amazing. That's excellent. But unfortunately, people like Mulvaney, well, they hate that. And they're like, oh my God, we hate this thing. We're going to get rid of it. Trump put me in charge of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And I promise I will do everything in my power to utterly destroy it. Well, and of course, that's exactly what he's been doing. And again, it's because Mulvaney represents those financial institutions. And now Warren, of course, is calling him out for it. And then, of course, calling out the damage that he is causing.
You know, in Congress, you repeatedly tried to kill the consumer agency. Since you got to the agency, you have announced that you won't use the exact enforcement tool that CFPB used to stop every single scam that I've mentioned today. You've taken obvious joy in talking about how the agency will help banks a lot more than it will help consumers, and how upset this must make me. But here's what you don't get, Mr. Mulvaney. This isn't about me. This is about active duty military. It's about first responders and students and seniors and families, and Ari and his dad and millions of other people who need someone on their side when consumers get cheated. You are hurting real people to score cheap political points.
And the sad thing is, yes, she's absolutely right. And Mulvaney does not care. Oh, hurt regular people? Yeah, as long as I make a profit. As long as I make money. Because after all, these financial institutions, especially payday lenders, which are extremely predatory, well, have given lots and lots of money to Mick Mulvaney back when he was in Congress. Mulvaney was a congressman, and his number one, the industry that donated to him is payday lenders. That's it. That's the truth. Again, they gave him money, and in return, he dropped dozens of investigations into those very same payday lenders. They are getting their return on investment. And unfortunately, that's what Mulvaney does. Now, Warren, of course, on this issue, she's great, calling people out for screwing over consumers. And look, I know some of you probably want to be cynical and say, well, she's running for president. Yeah, that's probably true. She is very likely, or it's very possible that she will run for president. But remember, she's been doing this for most of her career in the Senate. So just take note of that when you start to feel a little bit cynical. She's not perfect on every issue. She doesn't have to be. On the issue of protecting consumers against predatory lenders and corporations, she's, I think, second to none. Okay. Let's move on. Is a fun story. Okay. It has arrived. The moment that we have all been waiting for. A Fox News host is going after a member of the administration. And it's awesome. Watch.
The chronic has reached critical mass. A new Quinnipiac poll shows the highest number of respondents ever have less and less of a problem with you getting high. 63% polled support cannabis legalization. 93% approve of medical marijuana. And just a meager 5% oppose that. There's no fuzzy math here. It's very straightforward. And Attorney General Jeff Sessions and his anti-pot crusade are on the losing side of the argument. The Senate Health Committee recently unanimously approved an anti-opioid bill that's desperately seeking to combat the health crisis that has taken more American lives since 2000 than during World War II. There are a number of elements and amendments that mostly center on shorter-term pain prescriptions, finding non-habit-forming alternatives, and stopping drugs at the border. As plain as the green in your reefer, 2 studies show a direct correlation between marijuana and opioid use. One shows states with legal cannabis have 2.2 million fewer daily opioid prescriptions, and the other, a 25% drop in opioid overdose deaths in places with medical pot laws. So what does Jefferson Beauregard Sessions say about that? Well, he kind of shrugs and says he doesn't think that'll be sustained in the long run. Jeff Sessions won't be sustained in the long run because his ass-backward anti-liberty thinking is the very thing that's getting people killed. The more we study cannabis, the more it can be refined and used to treat medical conditions and boredom. The longer we protract the immoral drug war, the more decimation we'll see in inner cities and rural communities that are hit hardest by supply-side drug combat that has been proven fruitless. Jeff Sessions needs to do the right thing and admit he is wrong, but he won't. So instead, at some point, he's got to go. Hopefully, the next AG will be a force for good and not a cesspool of backward thinking, bad drug policy.
Damn. Wow. Wow. Okay. There's nothing in that I disagree with. That segment was right on the money. And it was from Fox News. Hey, everybody. Meet your next MSNBC weekend host. Right alongside Joanne Reed. Or maybe your next CNN host. Who knows, right? But damn, man, Kennedy, who would have thought? She'd say, that's it. Sessions gotta go. Ass backwards, man. Not only that, but calling out the drug war. What the hell is going on at Fox News? Okay. So, in reality, here's my take, right? Polls are fairly clear. Legalize it. Most Republicans say legalize it. Obviously, most Democrats say legalize it. Independents, legalize it. Legalize it already. And yes, a lot of people say, medical, that's the most, obviously, that's what polls the best, but also just general legalization for recreational use also, like I said, is in the majority. So the American people have spoken. And look, there's a financial incentive here, and I think that's what's the most important, and I think that's what people and Republicans are hitting on the most. They finally get see that, looks like you can make a lot of money off marijuana. For example, Colorado and Washington legalized. As I said, they were the first to legalize, followed by many other states that are basically making a killing in revenue. So conservatives look at that and they're like, cha-ching, man. Cha-ching. Look, we're talking billions and billions of dollars in revenue. And look, now that we got people like Speaker John Boehner saying, hey, you idiots, there's money here. There's money to be made. Why don't you join in already? Here comes our conservatives, and here comes Fox News to say, it turns out we love pot. And look, to be honest, prohibition is not really conservative. If you come at it from a conservative perspective, well, aren't you supposed to believe in small government? Well, policing what people put in their body is not exactly small government, right? As far as being anti-liberty, she mentioned, absolutely, that's true. And look, that is also appealing to voters, especially when it comes to a lot of independent voters. So, look, if Republicans start taking pro-pot positions, well, that could help immensely, especially in this disastrous midterm that is coming up. Now, whether they do, whether more politicians actually do so, that's an open question. I don't necessarily see a lot of people taking that position, but look, I think in maybe a few years, maybe in 2020, when there's another election cycle, another round of Republican primaries, you might actually start to see more Republicans challenging the old guard. And what are they going to use? Pro-pot positions. I don't know. Now, here's one more conspiracy, all right? And I don't think I've seen this conspiracy anywhere, so I'm going to start it, okay? What if this is a way to prompt Donald Trump, who watches Fox News, to get rid of Jeff Sessions, to give him a reason, right? Not because Donald Trump is pro-pot. No, it's because this will help him get rid of Robert Mueller. Oh, so this could be a message to Trump, and we'll see if it starts getting echoed on Fox and Friends, or Hannity, or Tucker Carlson show. So if either of those shows, Fox and Friends and Hannity especially, start mentioning maybe we should get rid of Sessions because he's so anti-pot, and look at how popular marijuana is now. Boy, he's never going to change. We might as well get rid of him. You know something is up. Because this could be a message for Trump to say, this is your way to get rid of Sessions. You get rid of Sessions, you appoint somebody that can fire Rod Rosenstein. Rod Rosenstein, once you get rid of him and replace him with someone else, they can fire Mueller. And there you go. There's the end of your Russia investigation. Maybe not. As I said, it's just a little bit of a conspiracy theory that I've just thought up. But regardless, when you start to flip Fox News on an issue like this to the right side of an issue, well, that can't always be a bad thing, right? We'll see. As I said, conspiracy. All right. I got a couple more minutes, but I really don't have any enough time for story. And so, nonetheless, I'll take a couple of suggestions to talk about something in the chat for what time we have left. So, if you guys could make a suggestion on what you'd like to hear me talk about for the next couple of minutes, or ask me a question on something. Until then, I'll just read through the chat here and see what's going on with you guys. So I'm going to read a couple of this. John Boehner, of course, realized that there's a lot of money to be made. So, yeah, I mean, money is a huge, huge factor when it comes to conservatives. Now the business class is into it. And now these corporations are going to start growing up around the cannabis industry. So that's why you're seeing this big turn. And it's like half good, half bad, right? Because, okay, it's good because it's going to get legal. It's actually going to reduce arrests for possession. That's always a good thing. It's going to help with the, obviously incarceration and all that. But there's a bad, and of course that would mean corporations, big corporations now controlling the marijuana supply. So that's not so much of a good thing. But anyway, a couple of suggestions. No, I will not run for local office. I can't. I'm a politician, so not interested. Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts dropping the boy out of their name. They're just going to be the Scouts. You know what? I'm perfectly fine with that. Like, whatever. Don't care. Like, I know there's a lot of people, there's a lot of snowflakes that are melting. Get over it. And I know a lot of people bring up, well, the Girl Scouts aren't dropping their name. Well, the Girl Scouts aren't happy about it either, to be fair. But I don't see anything wrong with just merging them into one big organization called the Scouts. And I think that would be fine. So anyway, there's that. Ranked choice. I am for ranked choice voting. I think that's a better way to do it. I know there are some people that disagree, but I also like the instant runoff system that they have in California, for example. So I think how that works is if a candidate doesn't get 50%, then it goes into a runoff with, I think, the two lowest or the people. I'm having a hard time explaining this for some reason, even though it's an incredibly simple concept. It just shows that I need more coffee in my life, more caffeine. But yeah, they go into a runoff with the other candidates, and there's a cutoff where some of the others get eliminated. So I think it's a good idea. I think that we need ways to involve third parties into our election system to give them a better shot, to give them a better chance, so that we can actually get more representation outside of both Republicans and Democrats. So anyway, let's see. See if there's any more. Do I think North Korea or leave any deal the USA puts forth? So that's a good question. By the way, Kimberly Buckley, gotta give her credit for a super chat. She says, so by Dolt 45 backing out of the Iran deal, North Korea will never believe any deal that is entered in with the USSA. Look, I think our credibility as a country is pretty low at this point among world nations. Again, look who we've elected. Look at our child president. So yeah, look, these countries have a lot of, I guess, they're very wary of us, and they should be, because again, now the good thing about the nuclear deal, I'm sorry, not the nuclear deal, but the North Korea deal, is that we didn't facilitate it. In fact, North Korea is like, Trump had nothing to do with this. So yeah, we're gonna meet with Trump, but this has mostly been a North Korea and South Korea deal. So are we going to enter in a specific deal with North Korea? I don't know. I don't know the possibility of that. But if North Korea and South Korea enter into a deal, well, that's completely separate to us. And I think that's I think it's going to be a good thing overall to have them enter into a deal without us involved. Because frankly, we don't need to be involved, and we don't need to police so many other countries, especially when we have so many problems here at home. But anyway, so that's it. I'm going to get out of here now. Thank you guys for the questions. Thank you, Kimberly, for the super chat. I appreciate that. That is how you can, of course, help the show. Okay. Let me get myself together here. Another great show tomorrow, so make sure to tune in, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here, TYT Nation. If you want to support us, patreon.com/TYT Nation. That's also a way you can support us. Please subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter, @JeffsPolitics, if you have a Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. So, all right. With that, I'm out of here. Thank you guys for watching. Love you all, and remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.